A Patriot battery has 6 people operating it. 6. That's it. 6 human beings sitting behind screens in a metal box somewhere in the desert, responsible for keeping everything above them from hitting everything around them. And the system they operate costs about $1 billion when you add up the radar, the launchers, the command post, and the missiles themselves. Each of those missiles, by the way, runs about $4 million a pop. Now imagine this. It's 2 a.m. in Qatar. The radar lights up. Not with one target, not with 10, with over 200. 200 inbound contacts approaching from multiple vectors, some fast, some slow, some hovering, and all of them heading toward your position. You have seconds to classify, prioritize, and decide which of those 200 things in the sky you're going to spend $4 million on, and which ones you're going to let through. Because here's the thing nobody tells you about air defense. You never have enough missiles. And that math problem is now the most dangerous job in the United States military. We've all seen the footage. Patriot missiles streaking into the night sky, intercepting ballistic missiles and drones over the Middle East. But what you're not seeing is what's happening inside that trailer, where 6 people are making life and death calculations faster than any human should have to. What it actually feels like when the system tells you there are more threats coming in than you have missiles to stop them. And what happens to those crews physically, mentally, and professionally when the math stops working in their favor? Because that's exactly what's been happening in the Persian Gulf since the end of February 2026, and the results are not what the Pentagon expected. So let's start logically so you get the whole picture. The Patriot system has been around since the 1980s. It was originally designed during the Cold War to shoot down Soviet aircraft, meaning large, fast, high-altitude targets. Pretty straightforward. One plane, one missile. Problem solved. The system got its fame during Desert Storm in 1991, when it was used against Iraqi Scud missiles. The Pentagon claimed a near-perfect intercept rate. The reality, which came out years later, was closer to maybe 9% against those Scuds. But that's a story for another time. What matters is what happened after. The Patriot was upgraded continuously. The PAC-2 variant improved its ability to hit ballistic missiles. Then came the PAC-3, a completely redesigned missile that didn't just try to explode near the target, but actually hit it directly, what they call hit to kill. Imagine the difference between throwing a grenade near a fly versus hitting the fly with a bullet. That's the leap from PAC-2 to PAC-3. And the latest version, the PAC-3 MSE, is the most capable surface-to-air missile the United States has ever fielded. It can engage ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, aircraft, and yes, some drones. But here's the problem that was always there, hiding in the math. Each launcher holds 16 PAC-3 missiles. A full battery has maybe 4 to 6 launchers, depending on the configuration. So, you're looking at 64 to 96 interceptors, total. That sounds like a lot until somebody sends 200 drones at you simultaneously for the price of what you'd spend on 4 of your own missiles. And this is where the story of the Patriot crew in 2026 becomes something no Cold War planner ever imagined. When Operation Epic Fury began on February 28, the United States and its coalition fired over 5,000 precision munitions in the first 96 hours. That's a burn rate that makes Desert Storm look like a weekend exercise. But what goes up must come down, and what goes out must be replenished. ATACMS, Tomahawks, JASMERs, all of them were being consumed at rates that the defense industrial base simply cannot match. But the Patriot crews weren't thinking about industrial base capacity. They were thinking about the next salvo. Because Iran's response to Epic Fury wasn't what anyone expected. Instead of launching their ballistic missiles in the kind of predictable waves that the system was designed to handle, Iranian forces mixed everything together. Shahed, 136 loitering munitions at low altitude and slow speed, faster cruise missiles at medium altitude, and then, buried in that mess, actual ballistic missiles coming down at Mach 7. All at once, the radar saw everything, but the software had to decide what mattered, and the 6 people in that trailer had to decide whether to trust the software or override it. Now, the Patriot's radar, the AN/MPQ-65, is genuinely impressive. It can track over 100 targets simultaneously and guide multiple missiles to different threats. But tracking is not the same as engaging. You can see 200 things coming at you and still only shoot at a fraction of them before the rest arrive. And every missile you fire is one less missile you have for whatever comes next, because nothing guarantees there won't be a second wave 20 minutes later, or a third. And Iran, whatever you think of them, understood this math perfectly. So here's what it actually looks like inside the engagement control station when a saturation attack begins. The screens light up with contacts. Every contact has a classification: ballistic, cruise, UAV, unknown. The unknown ones are the worst because the system is asking you to decide what something is before it decides whether to kill it. And some of those unknowns might be commercial aircraft, friendly drones, or debris from something you already hit. The crew has specific roles. The tactical control officer makes the engagement decisions. The tactical control assistant helps manage the tracks. The rest of the crew handles communications, system status, and coordination with other batteries. In a normal engagement, this is manageable. In a saturation attack, it's controlled chaos. Reports from coalition bases in Qatar and Jordan indicate that crews were operating continuously for 12 to 18-hour shifts during the first week of the conflict, with the system in active engagement mode for sustained periods that the Army had never really planned for in peacetime training. But the math problem got worse, much worse, because each PAC 3 MSE missile costs roughly $4 million. A Shaheed-style drone costs somewhere between $20,000 and $50,000. So every time the system fires 2 interceptors at a single drone, which is standard procedure to ensure a kill, you're spending $8 million to destroy something that cost less than a Toyota Camry. And Iran can build them faster than Lockheed Martin can build PAC 3s. That's not an opinion. That's arithmetic. And the Patriot crews knew it. They watched their missile count drop with every salvo, knowing that resupply wasn't coming fast enough. And then there's the thing nobody talks about publicly. Reports from defense forums with credible sourcing indicated that several key radar systems, not just Patriot radars, but the larger strategic sensors like the AN/FPS-132 early warning radar and THAAD battery radars, were either damaged or degraded during the opening days of the conflict. The exact details are still classified, but the implication is staggering. If your early warning radars are down, your Patriot battery is not just doing the math wrong, it's doing the math blind. But what happens to the people inside when all of this is going on? Because that's what we're really here for. And the answer is something the military doesn't put in brochures. First, the physical reality. The engagement control station is essentially a hardened trailer. It's air-conditioned because the electronics would melt otherwise, but it's not comfortable. The screens are bright and dense with information. The sound environment is constant radio chatter, system alerts, and the muffled sound of your own launchers firing, which, if you've never been near a Patriot launch, is not subtle. Each launch creates a pressure wave and a roar that you feel through the walls. When you're launching multiple salvos in rapid succession, it's a rhythmic series of thuds that your body absorbs whether you want it to or not. Then there's the psychological dimension. Every contact on that screen is a potential kill decision. The crew knows that if they misclassify something, either they waste a $4 million missile on a false target, or they let an actual threat through to hit whatever they're protecting, which might be a base with 1,000 people on it, a hospital, or an embassy with civilians inside. That weight doesn't go away after the alert is over. It stacks. Engagement after engagement, shift after shift. It stacks. Sleep deprivation hit hard during the first week. Standard operations assume you can rotate crews. But when you're under sustained threat, the experienced operators can't easily be swapped out for fresh ones because the situational awareness, understanding what the radar has been showing you for the past 8 hours, can't be transferred in a briefing. So the same people stay longer, get tireder, and the margin for error shrinks while the stakes stay the same. There were reports, unconfirmed but widely discussed in defense circles, that at least one Patriot battery in the region experienced what you might call a prioritization failure. The system, likely on the recommendation of its automated software, allocated interceptors to lower priority targets, while a higher priority ballistic threat was inbound. Whether the crew overrode or didn't override in time is not publicly known. But the implication that the system's automated logic and the human crew's judgment diverged under pressure is exactly the kind of failure mode that defense analysts have been warning about for years. And that, more than any single drone or missile, is what should worry you. But here's the thing that changes everything once you understand it. The Patriot system was not designed for this. Not this specific situation. Not 200 mixed threats arriving simultaneously on a sustained basis, night after night. It was designed to protect high-value assets against a limited number of sophisticated threats. A few ballistic missiles, a handful of cruise missiles, maybe some aircraft. The entire doctrine assumed that air superiority would be established quickly by American fighter jets, and the Patriot would only have to deal with whatever leaked through. That doctrine worked in 1991. It worked in 2003. In 2026, it broke. Because establishing air superiority against a country that doesn't need an air force to threaten you, a country that can launch hundreds of cheap drones from pickup trucks hidden in mountain valleys, is a fundamentally different problem. You can't shoot down a pickup truck with an F-35 if you don't know where it is until the drone is already airborne. And by then, it's the Patriot crew's problem. This is why the Pentagon is now urgently looking at directed energy weapons, high-powered microwave systems, and what they call SHORAD, short-range air defense, systems that can engage small drones cheaply. The Army has been fielding systems like the counter-rocket and mortar CRAM in Baghdad, which uses a modified phalanx naval gun to shoot down incoming projectiles. You may have seen the footage. That system fires 20mm tungsten rounds at about 4,500 per minute. It works against individual rockets and slow drones. But it was never meant to be the primary air defense for a major military base. It's a last resort. And the fact that it's now getting more media attention than the Patriot tells you something about where we are. And the comparison to World War II is impossible to avoid. During the Battle of Britain, the Royal Air Force was outnumbered and running low on pilots and planes. But their advantage was radar and a command and control system that allowed them to put fighters exactly where they needed to be. The Patriot crew in 2026 has radar. They have command and control, but they don't have enough interceptors. It's like having the radar and the map during the Blitz, but only 12 Spitfires to cover all of London. You know exactly what's coming. You just can't stop all of it. So, what actually happened to those crews in the Gulf? The honest answer is that we don't have the full picture yet because the conflict is still ongoing and much of the operational data is classified. But what we do know from open sources and credible defense reporting is this. First, Patriot batteries were consuming interceptors at unsustainable rates. The United States had, before the conflict, an estimated inventory of roughly 1,000 PAC-3 and PAC-3 MSE missiles globally. Not all of them were in the Middle East. Many were committed to the defense of Europe, South Korea, and Japan. Reallocation of interceptors from other theaters was discussed and reportedly began within the first week. That means the defense of other regions was being weakened to cover the immediate crisis. Second, crews were pushed beyond normal operational limits. 12 to 18-hour shifts under continuous threat became routine. The Army's doctrine assumed surge operations, lasting days, not weeks. The psychological toll on operators, the people making those life and death classification decisions at 3 a.m. on their fourth consecutive shift, is something the military will be studying for years. Third, and this is the part that defense planners are losing sleep over, the conflict demonstrated that the cost-exchange ratio is broken. It's not just unfavorable, it's fundamentally unsustainable. If your adversary can produce threat systems at 1/100th the cost of your interceptors and at 10 times the rate, you don't have an air defense problem. You have an economic problem. And you can't solve an economic problem with better radar. The U.S. response has been to quadruple production of certain munitions and to accelerate directed energy programs that could theoretically engage drones for pennies per shot instead of millions. But those systems are years away from full deployment. The Patriot crews in the Gulf are fighting today's war with yesterday's economics, and they know it. The Patriot system is still out there today, protecting bases and cities and embassies across the Middle East. And on paper, it is still the most capable ground-based air defense system the United States operates. Every upgrade has given it better radar, better missiles, and better software. But the fundamental problem remains. It was built for a world where threats were expensive and scarce. And we now live in a world where threats are cheap and abundant. 6 people in a trailer, $4 million per trigger pull, and a sky full of things that cost less than the chair you're sitting in. The Patriot crew doesn't need a better missile. They need a different kind of war. And until that changes, they're the ones sitting inside the math problem, deciding what lives and what dies, knowing they can't stop all of it. And that's what nobody shows you in those night vision clips of missiles streaking into the sky. The 6 people behind the screens who already know the math doesn't work.